Hey artists, welcome back to art class. We have a new project for you today. I'm really excited about it. This is a fun one. Lots of bright color. You can see my examples back here. We have some bugs. We're gonna make some cool bugs. So get ready to dive in and get a little bit messy, a little more painting today. Again, I have a material list for you. So go ahead and gather a few things. You are going to need some watercolor paints. You are going to need a paintbrush, probably one that's not too skinny. It doesn't have to be super fat, but kind of in the middle. Pencil, some scissors, a sheet of paper about this size. Doesn't matter exactly how big it is, but and then you're going to want a black sheet of paper, half of that size. So this is about the size of a piece of construction paper, and my black sheet of paper is half of that. I just took a piece of black construction paper and cut it in half. If for some reason you don't have one of these materials, see if you can adapt. Find something that you have at your house and use that instead. If you don't have watercolor, one thing you can do is to take food coloring and mix it with a little bit of water, and you can experiment, play around with that and see exactly how much food coloring to how much water you could do. Just put it in a little cup. Remember that is not washable. Most watercolor is washable, so if it gets on your clothes, gets on your table, it should wash out. Food coloring is not the case. So keep that in mind if you're doing that option. If you aren't sure how to adapt, shoot me a question in the comments. I'll see if I can help you work with what you have. No reason to run to the store and buy some materials. We should make it work. So if you need to pause the video real quick and go get your materials, go ahead and do that and we will get started. All right, so as you can see up here, we are using watercolor again. I have my blank sheet of paper up here. Mine is up straight because I want you to be able to see it, but I suggest that you lay yours flat. One quick note about your paper: the size of the paper doesn't really matter, it's not important. But the thickness of the paper, use what you have at home. No reason to go out and buy anything. The thicker the better for the paper. So if you have cardstock, that's great. If you have painter's paper, heavier drawing paper, the heavier the paper, the less it'll wrinkle and want to tear. If all you have is copy paper, then I would take two pieces and stack them up on top of each other, and this underneath piece will absorb some of that extra water. Even if you lay it on newspaper, that just keeps it a little stronger, helps it to dry a little better, and kind of keeps it from tearing so easily. So if you're concerned about your table, I recommend, especially if you're doing food coloring, I recommend putting newspaper down there. So alrighty, let's get started. So you should have your watercolor, and along with that, you're gonna need a little cup of water, because watercolor needs water, of course. So I have my cup, I have my brush, and I have my watercolors here. So I don't know about you guys, my watercolors, as you can see, have been well loved. I've got 2 kids at home. They love to paint. We've used our watercolors lots. They're wonderful. So if your art supplies are at home, we have lots of broken crayons too. If your art supplies at home are well loved, all the better. Just means you've done some beautiful artwork. It's floating around out there somewhere, so no problem. My goal is to have you use what you have at home. No reason, especially right now, but anytime, to have to go out and spend a bunch of money on art supplies. The basics are more than enough, so. All right, so with my watercolor, I'm just going to paint my paper. Ooh, I have a drip there, no problem. So this is kind of fun because you really can't mess this part up. All we're doing here is we're just filling the paper with color. You can see up here, there's no real design. I'm just having fun and painting. You can even, if you want, experiment a little bit with color mixing. If I overlap a little bit, I might get some interesting colors. You can still see my drip there, that's no problem. I do recommend doing this flat. Mine's up straight. That makes it a little easier. The only requirement here is that you fill up your paper. Oh, and look at that, I have some blue on my brush still. You can see I'm getting a little green in my yellow. I like it, it's pretty. Just be a little careful in your color mixing. If you mix too many colors in one spot, you get brown, turns to mush, you get some crazy colors in there, so be aware of that. Otherwise, just play around, fill up that space, see what happens when colors pull themselves into other colors where you didn't plan for them to be. Use a little green over here by my purple. Just fill up that white space. Now, once this is done, you will probably have to give it a little while, depending on how much water you have there. You'll have to give it a little while to dry before we glue on our black paper. Set it aside while you're cutting, and even once you're cutting on the black paper is finished, you might have to give it a little bit of time before you glue it. It doesn't have to be perfectly dry, but just so that there's no pools of water on there. So I'm gonna use some more red over here. There it goes, dripping again. Gonna have some paint on my floor here, guys. Not a big deal. The other thing I would like to remind you with this one, brighter colors are better. So you can see I have brown, I have black. Those are great for sometimes. I don't want to use them today. If you already used them, it's not a big deal. It just, the brighter colors help your design to show up a little bit better. So just keep that in mind. Alrighty, there is that. Beautiful. I have some more dripping. So that's going to need a little bit of time to dry. So I'm gonna pull that down very carefully, while I work on my next step here. Okay. So my next step is to design my bug. I'm gonna use white paper. Of course, the white paper is not gonna go on my final project, but this is just to draw out my bug, just so I can play around with it and see what I want it to look like here. Alrighty. There we go, found my pencil, took me a minute. Okay, so if, excuse me, if you are doing an insect, keep in mind there are 3 parts to an insect's body. A little science here for you guys. There's the head, there is the thorax, which is the middle part, and there is the abdomen, which is this area down here. So if you're doing an insect, there's all different kinds of insects, but they each have those kinds. If you want to do a spider, they're a little different. If you want to, there's all sorts of different kinds of bugs out there. So just be creative. You can make up your own. I think I'm gonna make a beetle for mine, guys. So there's the head. Does not have to be perfect. Here's the body. Now I want to, we're not going to see details and designs on there, but I want to make the outline a little more interesting. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time making patterns and eyeballs and details, but I just want the outline. So maybe I will make the wing on my beetle here sticking out. That'll make my outline a little more interesting to look at. See that? Okay, so now I am going to take my bug very carefully off of here, and I am going to cut it out. Now you can see I'm only going to be drawing half of my bug on my half piece of paper. So there we go. But I drew the whole bug just to get an idea. It's a little easier to do it when you're doing the whole thing. It's kind of hard to get your mind around it sometimes when you're just doing half and get an idea of what you want your bug to look like. So while I'm doing this, I want you to look up at my examples here and see. So what we're looking at today is positive and negative space. So positive space in an artwork is the thing that you're looking at, where your eye is drawn to. So if you're looking at a painting of a bowl of fruit, the bowl, the orange, the banana, the apple, that's the positive space. Around that is the negative space. And you always want to have a balance. You don't want to have, excuse me, you don't always want to have a tiny little bowl of fruit and a ton of negative space around there, because it's the balance gets off. And you also, but you need some negative space, right? You don't want to blow up your bowl of fruit. That negative space, even though you don't always notice it, it's not what you look at, it's important. So we're gonna work on using that negative space, making it matter in our artwork. So on this half, this black here is a positive space. The color is a negative space. And we kind of flip-flop it here. So the color here is the positive space. That's what we're looking at, the wings, the body of our dragonfly. The black is a negative space. So it just kind of plays with your brain a little bit, helps you to notice both the positive space and the negative space in your picture. So my bug is here, ready to go. I'm going to take my paper here. I'm gonna stick it up here real quick. And I'm gonna put my bug halfway on that paper, and I'm going to outline. And you can, every time I did this in class, my students would say, "You're drawing on black paper, you can't see it." You actually can see your pencil. You may not be able to see my pencil very well on this black paper from there, from where you are, but as you're doing it, oops, you're gonna have half, you'll be able to see it. You're gonna have half of your painting there on the negative space. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that out. Now be careful as you're cutting, because keep in mind, you are using both pieces of paper. You're gonna use a piece of paper, this piece that you're cutting off, and you're gonna use the shape of your bug on this piece of paper. So just cut carefully. Maybe you have your 3 parts of your bug, your head, abdomen, thorax. Once again, art, drawing, and other subjects, science, math, reading, all of them. You can use those in art. So, alrighty, back to this. Now this is actually one that I did earlier because my other one is not dry. This is the point where you may have to step away for a few minutes, let your paper dry or get a little bit more dry, and come back to it. Play it by ear, see how your paper's doing. Like I said, it depends on the paper, depends on how much water you used, depends on a lot of things. So, all right, I'm gonna stick that back up here. This is a different painting, like I said. You might notice that it looks a little bit different. Now, all I need to do is I need to take my glue and my 2 pieces of my beetle, and I'm going to, he's a flying beetle. Looks a little bit like a sea turtle, actually, which is cool too. So I'm gonna touch those, line those up so that the corners touch. If you can see that, move that out of your way so you can see a little better. The corners need to touch. All right, remember with your glue, guys, I'm sure your art teachers have told you, or your teachers or somebody along the line has told you, just a dot, not a lot. You do not need a lot of glue. Tiny little dots of glue should do the trick. So luckily we're working on black paper so you can see really well. See my little dot there? Dot in each corner. Should be more than enough. If you're using a glue stick, you don't even have to worry about that problem. Makes it a lot easier. All right, I flipped it around. That's okay. So I'm gonna stick that guy on. I'm going to stick, make sure I got it lined up there. Stick that guy on. I usually tell students to put your glue on the same side where the pencil marks are. A few little dots there, see, that's more than enough. That way you don't see your pencil marks on the finished product. And there it is. There's my beetle. All right, so guys, I can't wait to see your artwork. Please take a picture, post it below. I would love to see it. I'm not used to teaching without a class in front of me, so this is something new and different for me. So let me know what you think. Share the video with any friends you think may be missing their art class and might be wanting to get creative and not sure where to start. So check it out. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.